If this is your first time seeing one of my videos, my name is Barry and I consider myself a polymath. Pretty much what that means is I live a life out of curiosity and I learn about things in a lot of different areas. So what I like to do is I find something of interest, I test it out, and then what I do is I apply it to my life, and what I'm doing is I'm bringing it to you so you can apply those same things to your life. Now, this is why it seems like I talk about a lot of different things. If you were here in the beginning of my channel, you might have noticed that I started off with fitness content, but then I had to kind of roll it back a little bit just to kind of start off from the beginning, because the beginning was not fitness, it was starting off with my mind. So I just decided to bring it back to the roots so that we can all kind of develop together. Now, if you want to know why I made this video, if you're still feeling stuck, and here's why. Now, the reason why it all starts with our mind, and this is something that I've learned over the 41, almost 42 years of living that I've done. And as I consider myself a polymath, I've done a lot of things alone. And because they took me to different places where there was not advice that was readily available, because I found myself in situations where people have not even gone before. So I found myself having to deal with a lot of fresh problems alone. And in dealing with these things alone, I came up with my own frameworks of how to get through these issues so that I never have to go through them again. And since I live a life of like exploration, I consider it like, a living experiment. There's a lot of cool things in this world, and then I don't want to limit myself to just one thing or two things. And because with each level of something that you have to go through, then there's some more development that you have to do. And there's not always books and people that are readily available. Now we have YouTube, which is pretty important. But at the same time, you don't always have these resources available that you can compile them into a way that you can turn into a system. So what I like to do is I like to gather information. I like to test out little bits of it. And as I test out things and I find out what works, then I start to create frameworks on things that work for me. So now that I've done so much in my life, I want to help you. So if you're ever feeling like, you're at the point to where, you're feeling stuck, or you're like, you want to do more in life, but then you don't know how to do it, then this channel is for you. I go over a lot of different things, but as of right now, my focus is on mindset and trying to heal the mindset, really, because that's what's keeping your growth from happening. And the big shocker about this is if you're trying to do something huge, your mind has to come first, because you have to start cutting off a lot of distractions, a lot of things that have kind of held you back in place for probably many years. So this is the things that I learned, and I just want to kind of break it down for you just so you can know like what the path is moving forward as I start to develop this content. So with your mindset, like I started off a couple of videos ago saying that, you don't really know who you are. And I'm not saying that, like you essentially you don't know who you are, but there's a lot of things that we've carried over the years, a lot of barriers that we built up, a lot of things that we're hiding from because it's what society makes us. And after a long period of time of trying to, fit in and be around a lot of people, even when it's at our own detriment, it kind of masks who we really are at our core. So what I'm doing is, because I've had to do this shedding myself, I want to show you how I did it so that you can do it yourself, so you can start living a better life. I'm not saying that I have all the answers, but I'm saying I do have some answers, because I consider I have a very good life. Not like, riches or anything like that, but my mind is free. I can think how I want to, I feel how I want to, and I don't feel embarrassed or shame about feeling that way. And I know a lot of people out there are probably looking for some kind of freedom, some kind of relief to just be at peace in your own mind. We're always racing, we're always doing, we're always distracting. And what that does is it just prolongs the amount of work that we have to do, because we won't sit still long enough to do something different. Now, here's the plan. What we're going to have to do is we have to identify the problems. And when you identify the problems, then you can start coming up with solutions for them. But the thing is, we get so distracted with the daily life grind. We all have spouses, we have, children, we have obligations that take up most of our time. And then one of the things that we always have to deal with is we say that I don't have enough time to do anything. I can barely take care of myself, because there's always something that you have to take care of. That's not going to change. But what is going to change is the time that you have to yourself, you can use it more efficiently when you find out how to do this kind of stuff. Now, the last video I made was in reference to this, is like about healing. Now, healing is probably the cornerstone of how you're going to get anything done in the future. And if you're wondering why, if you you consume videos on, things like shadow work and, meditating and visualization and journaling and all these different things, they're all they take you into many different directions, but none of them actually get to a part to where you can come up with a plan. I like to do a lot of planning. I like to do things. I like to come up with like frameworks in order to kind of establish a way that I can set it and then forget about it. I don't like thinking about a lot of stuff. I don't like to do a lot of things to get me to one objective. I like to set something in play that I know that I can do effortlessly, then I can move on to the next problem. This is what I want to help you get to as well. So in order to do this, here's what we got to do. So the first thing is, after you get into a certain age, once you reach your 30s and 40s, it gets pretty task heavy, and then you're pretty limited on time. So when you get task heavy, then you have to have a different mindset of how you're going to solve your problems. In order to solve these problems, you're going to have to toss out the old things that you've always run on. This means that you have to start questioning everything. And even though it seems like a daunting task, the thing is, once you question it once and you get to the root of the problem, you don't have to do it again. This is not something like a meal plan to where you get to a certain point, then you set it to the side and then you get all the weight back. This is not that. This is something that you can apply to pretty much anything in your life. So you start off with the problems. You have to start taking inventory of everything, what your beliefs are, what kind of wounds you've been carrying, all these things that that trigger you. All this stuff has to be questioned. This is how you start the process, because what we're doing is we're running on an old operating system that we've probably had since we've been teenagers. And when you get to a certain age, that stuff got to go. Like, you can't take this old mindset and continue to think that you're gonna make something new with old things running in the background. You got to start letting all that stuff go. And this is why it becomes so difficult, because not a lot of people can tell you how to let these things go without very vague words. We all heard of healing your inner child. We all heard of shadow work. We all heard of, bringing in the light and all this stuff. And there's a lot of different methodologies for that. What I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to take an inventory. Think of at least just think of one problem. You don't have to think of all of it, but it's going to require you to take everything that you know to be true and question it. Where did it come from? We have to find the origins of these things, because if you start thinking back, you probably got taught a lot of this stuff, but what we forget to do sometimes is we forget to put ourselves in there. Is this what we believe, or is this what we've been taught? And if it's what you've been taught, then you probably have to question it, because that means that if somebody from your past has told you this stuff, that means that they got it from somewhere too. And if you got it from the past, we're not living in the present and we're not moving forward in the future. Question everything. And this may step on a lot of toes when I tell you this, is that everything is up on the chopping block, all the way down to how you see your whole mind, how you see your life. Your life is essentially a bunch of patterns that happened over a long period of time, and they compounded to make who you are today. So this is what I'm going to ask you to do. Just start thinking about some stuff. Think about the next time that something pisses you off. Think about why something makes you mad, why you shut down during a particular situation. And then when you take that problem, then you're going to start to notice, you start breaking it down in little pieces. You're going to start to think, this ain't even got nothing to do with me. This is something that I got labeled as. This is something that, people said that you do this when something like this happens, and it's not even you. It's just something that you've grown to, kind of identify yourself as. So the thing that I'll just leave you with is you're going to have to start questioning things. You're going to have to overhaul your whole life with brand new information. That is the only way that you're going to be able to heal yourself, to be able to get a clear mind, to be like, if you want to get in shape, It's the only way you're going to do that consistently. Because as long as you're carrying all this old baggage, you're going to have a lot of things that keep coming back up, and you're going to wonder why. You're going to wonder why you stop. You're going to wonder why nothing seems to work. It all has to do with the same thing. And I want to break it down, but I don't want to simplify it too much. Healing is essentially pattern recognition at a very high level. All the things that we do are patterns. They happen every single day, whether we are conscious of it or not. They're just patterns that have replayed over and over in life for our whole life. So once we start breaking down these patterns, we just start discovering who the key players are in these patterns. We want to start off where you identify when they came about. This is where you start to leave all that stuff behind you. Essentially, what you're doing is you're jumping, you're time traveling. You're going from the past, the present, the future, and you're scrubbing it out. And you go over, every time you go over it, you go over it with a new piece of information, and then you pull out new information out of that scrubbing. You pull out the jewels, discard the rest. That's what we're doing. We're going to past, present, and future. We're time travelers now. The only way that we're going to heal this stuff, the only way that we're going to fix it permanently, is you have to travel through time. Sounds like a pretty big concept, but as the new videos start coming out, I'm going to break this down to you in levels and layers, because you only have to do this stuff once. I'm not saying that it's a quick process, but you do it once. Once you start healing these things, once you start breaking them down into their little bite-sized pieces, then you're going to start to see some changes. But a word of warning, it's going to change a lot. The more you heal, the more you figure out, it's going to push you further away from things that you knew to be familiar. That's where the problem comes in, because you'll start to want to, start second guessing yourself. Is this the right path? Am I doing this correctly? And you're not going to get confirmation from anyone, because most of the time your surroundings are people who are stuck in their own patterns as well. You're going to start to feel a little bit different, but you're also going to start to feel more free. This is what you want. That is your beacon, your guiding light to let you know that this stuff is working. It's going to start to make you stand alone. If you're prepared for that path, this is where you want to be. Like and subscribe, man. We got a lot of work to do, and we don't have forever to do it. So buckle up and let's get started. I hope y'all have a good day. Peace.